On a cold winter night in an old Haveli, a family discovers a terrifying secret that's been locked away for decades. I'm about to share a spine-chilling story of possession, ancient jinns, and a young girl's fight for survival. Tonight we'll enter a world where shadows whisper, where an innocent game of hide-and-seek unleashes an evil that's been waiting 90 years for its next victim. What happened in that forbidden wing of the Haveli? Why did a 14-year-old girl's personality change overnight? And most disturbingly, what sinister entity has been living behind those locked doors all these years? But before we begin, let me warn you, this isn't just another ghost story. What I'm about to tell you is based on events that actually took place in a remote hill station, where a postal department's old bungalow holds dark secrets that should have remained buried forever. It's a tale of how one family's peaceful life turned into a nightmare when they discovered why half of their new home had been sealed off for nearly a century. Now, let's begin this haunting story that will make you think twice before exploring locked rooms in old buildings. Remember to turn down your lights, get comfortable, and prepare yourself for a journey into darkness. Subscribe and watch a spine-chilling horror story. Don't forget to press the bell icon without fear. This was the third transfer in the last 4 years. Along with Papa, all 5 of us, 4 siblings and Mother, were tired of running from place to place with our belongings. The most difficult part was changing schools repeatedly. New environment, new people. Just when we would start to settle in, Papa would announce moving to a new place. This time, Papa's transfer was to a small village situated on a hill, far from the city. All 4 of us had long faces. First, it was a village, and such a backward one at that. There wouldn't be a proper school or living place. Moreover, our large family couldn't manage in a small house. Papa informed us that the postal department had prepared an old bungalow for us to live in, and there would be no problems. With heavy hearts, we left our city house and set out for the hills. Among us 4 siblings, I, Ravi, was the eldest, then my younger brother Sachin, followed by our 2 younger sisters, Vinny, who was 14 years old, and the youngest, Soni. Vinny was the most playful and cheerful among all siblings, always laughing, smiling, playing, jumping, troubling everyone. This was her daily routine. We had reached the new bungalow. The bungalow was several times larger than we had anticipated. One part of the bungalow was cleaned for us to live in, while nearly half of the remaining portion either had locks or was severely dilapidated. Some doors had latches attached and were left locked. We were still exploring the bungalow when an old woman came, supporting herself with a stick. She explained that her ancestors had also looked after this Haveli. She was the only child of her parents. After her husband passed away shortly after marriage, she returned to her maternal home and began looking after this Haveli. Mai was about 75 years old. Seeing our family, she lovingly patted my 2 young playful sisters' heads and said, "Allah Hafiz." "Are you Muslim?" Mother asked with a slightly strange expression. "Yes, madam." "Take care of one thing. Don't let the girls go to other parts of the bungalow." "What do you mean by girls?" "I mean neither children nor adults should go to the other parts of the bungalow. Use only the portion that has been cleaned, understand?" "But why? What's there?" "Nothing. It's just been empty for years, and most parts are broken down. Just being cautious to prevent any accidents. Otherwise, do as you please." She started leaving, leaning on her stick. "You don't live in this bungalow?" Mother asked surprisingly. No, I live in a small settlement nearby, not too far from here. Call me if you ever need anything." We began inspecting the entire house, Papa and Mother got busy arranging the household items. In such a large haveli, there were approximately 20 rooms, of which about 10 rooms were locked and in a dilapidated condition. Of the remaining 10 rooms, we had chosen 4 for ourselves. Even after arranging things in the other rooms, 2 rooms were still empty. These remaining 2 rooms had become a playground for my 2 mischievous sisters. We were enrolled in the village school. With Papa's government vehicle, we would occasionally go out to see the beautiful surroundings. Hill areas are very beautiful. Besides natural beauty, one more thing is very famous in the hills: stories of black magic and ghosts. My classmates often scared me with ghost stories from here and there. I would come home and tell these stories to my younger siblings with added spice to scare them. When all 3 would often cry in fear, I would feel victorious, and a smile would spread across my face. We had only been here for a few days. I was playing cricket with my younger brother, Sachin. Mother had gone to sleep after finishing her work, asking me to look after all 3 children. Both younger sisters were running around playing in the empty rooms. Suddenly, we heard a scream. Sachin and I dropped our bat and ball and ran inside quickly. Hearing the scream, Mother also came running out of her room. We ran to the hall but saw no one there. Soni's continuous crying could be heard. It didn't take me long to realize that Soni's crying was coming from the forbidden part of the haveli. I grabbed Sachin's hand and ran into the prohibited section of the haveli. Spider webs and dust were everywhere. Looking ahead, I saw Vinny lying unconscious on the floor, and Soni was standing next to her, crying loudly. Around the same time, Mother also reached us. Seeing Vinny unconscious, Mother screamed. Somehow, we brought Vinny to an airy room outside. After calming Soni down, I asked her, "Why were you crying? And how did Vinny fall unconscious?" I went to the outer hall looking for Vinny. She probably went to hide in the inner room. Hearing her scream, I ran there and found her lying like that on the floor. Soni explained between sobs. Mother started crying seeing Vinny. My condition was also deteriorating. Should I comfort Mother, take care of Soni, or look after unconscious Vinny? Sachin ran and brought 2 glasses of water. He gave 1 glass to Mother and sprinkled water from the other on Vinny's face. She slowly started regaining consciousness. Seeing Vinny safe and sound, Mother and Soni stopped crying. Mother lovingly placed her hand on Vinny's head and asked, "What happened, Beta? How did you faint?" Mom, I was looking for a place to hide. There was a latch on that room's door with a protection thread tied to it. When I opened it and entered the room, everything looked hazy. There was some strange smell. From there, I tried to get out, but felt like I had lost my way out. I was very scared. That's why I screamed. After that, I don't know how I came here, Vinny explained while drinking water. You mean you were inside the room, then how did you end up outside? You were lying outside the room, Sachin said. I don't know, Baya, but I'm very scared. I'll never go to that side again, Vinny replied. At that time, calming Vinny was more important, so Mother brushed off the matter and started preparing halwa for them. Some things from this incident bothered my mind. If Vinny's story was true, why didn't I see any protection thread tied to the door? Secondly, how did Vinny get outside from the room? Where did the smoke come from, and why? What kind of smell was Vinny talking about? Strange thoughts were coming to mind. In between, I kept remembering the ghost stories told by my classmates. The stories I used to listen to for entertainment were now making me shiver just thinking about them. Sleep played hide and seek with me all night. By morning, my bloodshot eyes were telling the tale of my nighttime vigil. When I came out of my room, I learned Vinny had a fever. I became worried again. Perhaps fear had settled inside her, causing the fever. Mother spent all day taking care of Vinny, but her fever wouldn't come down. By late night, her fever had crossed all limits. She kept muttering something in delirium throughout the night. At dawn, she was taken to the hospital in Papa's government car. The next 3 days passed with her suffering and fever. Mom and Papa stayed with Vinny at the hospital. Finally, on the 4th day, news came that Vinny's condition had improved somewhat. After spending 2 more days in the hospital, Vinny came home. Vinny was the life of us all. With her return home, the radiance returned to all our faces. Everyone was slowly returning to normal, except for one. Vinny didn't jump and play like before. She often sat quietly in one place or watched us playing. At first we thought it was irritability and weakness from the illness, but this pattern became endless. Vinny now rarely spoke. She spent most of her time in her room. Time was moving forward at its own pace. This continued for about 6 months. We tried hard to make her play, run, smile with us, but there were no expressions on her face. She would just stare blankly into space, expressionless. If we pushed too hard, she would get up, go to her room, and close the door. Mom and Papa were tired of asking what was wrong, but there was no response from her. Then one day, Papa entered the house very excited. Papa had a box of sweets in his hand. In an excited voice, he called both younger sisters and handed them the sweets box. "Hey, I got promoted. The salary will increase too, and we won't have to run anywhere else for the next 4 years," Papa said happily. The news of the promotion brought smiles to all our faces. When Papa tried to feed sweets to Vinny, she pushed away his hand and ran inside. After Papa's promotion, there was no financial difficulty at home. Papa started earning good extra income in his new post. The home's atmosphere started changing. Beautiful curtains, expensive clothes, good furniture began enhancing our house's beauty. Everything was going much better than we had expected, so much so that somewhere in this glitter and glamour, we started ignoring Vinny's behavior. As the year was coming to an end, my lovely, playful sister had become a serious girl. Her performance at school was also deteriorating. Somehow, with much convincing, she took the exams but clearly refused to go to school the next year. Within a year, there was a lot of change in her physical and mental condition. That little girl now looked like a mature girl. I had also been admitted to college. I would stay up late making my assignments. That night, while studying, I was awake quite late. Suddenly, I heard someone whispering. The voice was masculine. I became somewhat alert. With slow, careful steps, I reached the hall and realized the sound was coming from Vinny's room. I peeked quietly into Vinny's room and saw her talking in whispers to a wall. There was no one else in the room besides Vinny, and what disturbed me most was her voice. A girl who wouldn't speak a word all day was talking in a masculine voice at midnight. Somehow, I managed to suppress my scream and thought it better to leave. The night was quite late. I didn't think it right to wake anyone up at that time. How I spent each moment that night, I cannot express in words. As soon as morning came, I told Mom and Papa everything. Mother trembled with the fear of something unfortunate happening. Mom and Papa quietly started looking for a tantric or exorcist. 2 days later, they found a Muslim occultist. He gave Mom and Papa some blessed water to sprinkle in Vinny's room and throughout the house. Somehow, they sprinkled the water all over the house without Vinny noticing. That day, after many years, Vinny ate properly. She even smiled once or twice. Mother developed complete faith in the tantric. The next few days were very pleasant for us. Vinny would come sit with us for a while and smile occasionally too. There was hope of her getting better. Papa informed the tantric about the improvement in Vinny's condition, and he became confident. The next day, he promised to come to the Haveli and free the entire house from obstacles. As per the tantric's instructions, all the materials were prepared in advance. At the appointed time, he reached the Haveli. After making all the preparations for the ritual, the exorcist ordered Vinny to be called. Vinny smiled mysteriously upon seeing the tantric. She had draped her dupatta strangely over her white salwar kameez, just like Muslim women wear during namaz. Seeing Vinny in this form shocked us all. Upon reaching near the exorcist, she smiled again and started whispering something in a masculine voice. Within moments, the exorcist fell to the ground. We were all frozen with fear. In just a few moments, the exorcist's eyes rolled back. Seeing this, Vinny let out a loud laugh and began glaring angrily at Mother. Then she looked at all of us and started walking towards her room. We were all still stunned. Somehow, Papa gathered courage and checked the exorcist's pulse. Sweat broke out on Papa's forehead. Calling out to me, Papa ordered to get the car out quickly. The exorcist's broken, failing breaths were still going on, and Papa didn't want to let him die. Fearing catastrophe, Papa's hands and feet were shaking. We somehow got him admitted to the hospital and returned home by night. There was a strange kind of silence in the house. Mom, Sachin, and Sony were sitting fearfully in one room. Understanding everyone's state of mind in the house, Papa brought food from outside. After eating, no one was ready to go to their rooms. Somehow, after putting Sony to sleep with Mom and Papa, Sachin and I returned to our room. We couldn't understand whether to call this Haveli unlucky or lucky. After coming to this Haveli, Papa had progressed a lot. Can a ghost or house be auspicious for someone? Maybe Vinny had some mental problem when she was doing such things. But the exorcist falling at that moment, the doctor saying he had a heart attack, that could happen to anyone. I was trying to deny the truth I had seen with my own eyes by putting it to the test of science. Until 12 o'clock at night, Sachin fell asleep, but there was no sleep in my eyes. I went out to check on Mom, Papa, and Sony's condition, and saw Vinny standing outside Mom and Papa's room, sobbing. Her back was towards me, but upon careful listening, some of her sounds in broken tone were reaching me. I hid behind the room's corner and tried to listen. Forgive our parents, they just want our well-being. For Allah's sake, spare their lives. Oh Allah, help. Vinny's voice reached me. Hearing Vinny's language, a strange shiver ran through my entire body. How and when did my sister, raised in a Hindu family, learn to speak such fluent Urdu? My mind wasn't working. Suddenly my throat became dry with thirst. Who was she pleading with? What was the mystery of this Urdu? I just couldn't understand. The next few days, Vinny spent in her room. On the third day, while sitting at the dining table, she requested Mother to make kheer. Mother happily made kheer for her. Then gradually her food demands increased. Sometimes she would ask for chaat, sometimes for bhatura. She would just take her food straight to her room. Her attire and way of living had become like Muslim women. One day, Mother remembered old Mai. She was Muslim too, right? Could she have done some black magic on my child? Mother was now blaming Mai. But what could be done? She wouldn't easily admit that she had done black magic. We would need help from another tantric. Mother told Papa her thoughts in the evening. I just came from the hospital after seeing that exorcist. Half his body is paralyzed. His tongue is twisted. He's in no condition to speak or move around. Seeing me, he started making strange guttural sounds. I don't think any tantric will want to come to this Haveli now." Still, at Mother's insistence, Papa wandered to some tantrics for his child's safety, but no one was ready to help. 2 months had passed. We were all disappointed. Papa tried hard to get transferred, but nothing was working out. It felt like we were trapped in this Haveli. Meanwhile, Vinnie's actions had become quite strange. Her health started deteriorating. She fell unconscious once or twice. When she vomited after seeing food one day, Mother became worried. Seeing no solution in sight, Mother decided to go to old Mai. Somehow, asking around, Mother reached Mai's house. It was a single-room house with a thatched roof. In terms of belongings, there were just some utensils and a cot. Seeing Mother, she became somewhat troubled. "How did you come, mistress? You could have called me." "Mai, if any of my words hurt you, I apologize." "What are you saying, madam? Has something happened?" "Mai, you had said not to let children go to the other part, but one day my child accidentally went there." Then Mother told her the whole story. Hearing Mother's story, lines of worry appeared on her forehead. How is this possible? She took out a glass of water from the pot and drank it. "Why didn't you come earlier? Now it's too late." "What do you mean? Control yourself, madam. What I'm going to say you probably won't be able to bear. Is your child pregnant? What nonsense are you talking about?" "I'm telling the truth. History is repeating itself. This isn't happening for the first time." "But how? Who? What does all this mean?" "I'll tell you everything. Please have some patience. I'm not my parents' only child. I had an elder sister named Reshma who was 15 years older than me. This was about 90 years ago. Father was a 4th-class employee in the Postal Department. The British ruled the country then. They had turned this Haveli into a dak bungalow for British officers to stay, and my father was responsible for its maintenance. Father did his work with complete honesty. My parents lived in the last room of the now dilapidated part of the Haveli. At that time, this room wasn't in such condition. My 13-year-old sister also lived in that room with them. Gradually, sister became withdrawn. Then she stopped going out and started staying locked in her room alone. Often she would make strange sounds looking at the walls at night. Sometimes she would start crying while sitting, sometimes laughing. My mother couldn't have any children after sister's birth. 2 years after coming to this Haveli, Mother's womb became green again. Meanwhile, a large sum started coming from the British government for the Haveli's maintenance. In that era, when poverty and starvation were widespread, our house had abundance of food and wealth. Moreover, we had a magnificent Haveli to live in. Mother and father considered themselves lucky and took pride in their fortune. There was only one trouble in their life, and that was sister's changing behavior day by day. Father took sister to many malvis and exorcists, but her condition didn't improve. No doctor, Vaid, Hakim, or Tantric could understand their problem. While Mother was overjoyed about her pregnancy, they faced terrifying news. Sister was pregnant. That day, when the midwife who came to see Mother told her this, after seeing sister, she couldn't believe her ears. How could sister, who stayed locked in her room all day, be pregnant? The fear of society shook Mother to her core. Somehow gathering courage, she told Father everything, and it was like a storm hit the house. This was completely beyond imagination and science. How could a girl become like this? They asked sister very lovingly, but she gave no answer. Even in front of Father's anger and beatings, sister's tongue didn't loosen. When no other solution came to mind, finally Father told the whole story to an elderly village man. That uncle gave Father the address of a tantric. Father went to that tantric with a piece of Reshma's worn clothing. The tantric took sister's cloth from father, smelled it, and started some mantra sadhana. After a while, the tantric told father, "Saving your daughter is very difficult." "But what happened to my daughter, and why is all this happening?" "Your daughter isn't under the shadow of any ghost or spirit. If that were the case, I might have been able to save your daughter. I mean, a jinn has taken control of your daughter's body. Jinns are very powerful. Humans don't have the power to stop them. Jinns have their own separate world. They don't come to our world without being summoned. Surely someone must have called it here for their selfish purposes. But why only my child? Give me time until tomorrow. Through my sadhana, I'll find out why and how this jinn came here, and what it wants from your daughter." After spending the entire night sleepless, father reached the tantric early the next morning. If you liked this story, please subscribe to us, follow our Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe, friends.